Hello, and welcome to another intellectually stimulating episode of Iceademia's Artist Spotlight. I am your host, Johannes Ice, and today we will be diving into the mind-blowing work of lifelong painter Steve Spathelf. Steve's parents recognized his potential early on, and by the age of 8, he was learning to paint under the direction of Ethel Berlin. He continued his formal education at Bowling Green State University and the Kendall School of Design in Ohio and Michigan, respectively. His career began soon after moving to the Tampa Bay area around 30 years ago, with the primary focus of customizing and beautifying his clients' homes with a wide variety of fantastic lifelike murals. His works have been celebrated in a number of publications, including the St. Pete Times, Tampa Bay Magazine, Imago, and House Trends. Interestingly, he is probably best known for his work in citrus. During the Great Recession, good times, when work was tight for many in the art community, Steve had the notion to stir the pot and engage in his own form of street art, randomly painting a series of realistic oranges, it's a Florida thing, throughout his hometown of Dunedin. After initially creating a bit of a controversy, the once sleepy town decided to embrace their maverick maestro, and Dunedin is now the proud home to exactly 800 at the time of this recording, unless I missed one that you just did.
808 now.
Oh, 808. Wow, that was fast. Yeah, I stand
You're
corrected.
still asking for them.
Now, is this individual oranges, Steve, or like orange paintings with multiple
No,
oranges?
these are locations.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, there's thousands of probably oranges.
There are thousands of oranges, yes. Wow. With a few grapefruit and limes thrown in for good measure, right?
Very few, yes.
Gotcha. As few as possible. We first met at a holiday party around that time that I was hired to drum with. Steve was a friend of the host, who was also a client of his that had hired him to transform their open kitchen into a gorgeous Mediterranean escape, complete with an adorable lizard painted on the wall to drive their pets crazy. It was some next-level work, and I was instantly a fan. So on that note, it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce to you my friend and fellow artist, Steve Spathelf. Hello, Steve.
Hello there. Ice, how are you?
I'm great, man. How the heck are you?
Splendid. And it's
Splendid.
some orange this morning, and it's hot here, so I like to get that stuff done early in the day.
Right. Awesome, man. It's so cool. So do you remember when we met?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, your name came up last night. I went out to dinner with them.
What?
Yeah, I told him I was having an interview with you today. Yeah,
No way.
serious. Yeah.
Oh, I love this stuff. That's so cool. So yeah, I even took a picture of that lizard. I thought it was so adorable, and I didn't find the time to go through my stuff and find it, but maybe I'll have to post that at some point as like as part of the advertising for our interview here because I loved that, and you're like, oh yeah, you got to check this out over here, this little guy. So you were into doing lizards there for a hot minute, right?
Yeah, whenever I paint a mural in someone's home, somewhere in the house I paint a lizard. And it was lots of times they call me up when I'm finished, and there's a lizard here to scare me to death. And I don't roam the houses or anything, but just in a little corner somewhere we least expect it, and that's my little trademark.
That's a beautiful thing. That's awesome. And so, wow, there's just so many wonderful things that you do. What is it that? Well, you mentioned that you painted a couple oranges this morning. What's your current status? What projects are you working on right now?
It's wacky things right now. The Tao Society here in Dunedin have these two guardian food dog lions, and they were starting to wear away. And they're big, like 4 feet by something. They're huge, and I repainted those. And that was the last nice few spring days that we had. So that was a nice little project. And another one, I'm painting a Santa Claus in my studio right now, a life-size Santa Claus.
Okay.
My client, she bought it, and it was black. It was all black. It was a real funky thing. So she wanted me to make it look like Santa Claus. So I'm painting Santa Claus in my studio. I'm getting the weirdest jobs lately, but that's okay. If I'm behind a paintbrush, I'm all right.
That's awesome. No, I love that. Yeah, so that's I wouldn't have guessed that you were working on food dogs in Santa.
No, it's pretty unexpected, yes.
So what does that restoration work like on the dogs? Do you just work with you work on top of what's there already? Do you actually like do you have to like get rid of any pre-existing finish and or paint? What's the process?
Well, I cleaned and sanded it a bit, and then just put a really high quality primer on it. So it was pretty straightforward. There was a few cracks, and that was no big deal to patch those. and then paint the base color. And then there was a finish that I put on and rubbed in the cracks and everything to make it look old. I mean, it's
Hmm.
ironic here I'm refinishing, but I'm making it look old. And then it looked like I put a high gloss primer on it, and it looks pretty good if I do say so myself.
Sweet. Yeah, I saw something that you posted about them. Was that picture, if you remember posting that, was that like it was a during photo or was that the after or?
Both. I mean, it was all
Okay.
together. I put the during, and so if you maybe look for that, maybe you'll find the finished products there.
Okay, yeah, I'll double check that because I remember looking and going like, "Oh, that's so cool." Those are neat,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff needs to be restored, frankly, right? And it's outdoors, isn't it?
Oh, sure, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And like I say, it was glorious. I had got there in the morning because the sun started shining on it, but it was perfect weather for it. It was just kind of a zen little setting there, and I really enjoyed that.
that's fantastic. That's awesome. So, going backwards now, we'd mentioned that you started taking lessons at a fairly early age, right around 8 or so.
Mhm. Yep.
What was the aha moment for your parents that they were like, "Oh, we need to, get
I
him."
was drawing obsessively. I mean, I just with pencil and paper, I would just draw on anything. And after a while, I was just, it seemed I was talented at a young age. So they decided to see, they heard about a teacher in the town where I'm from, and just took me there on Saturday mornings.
Was there a favorite thing that you used to like to draw when you were little? I know when I was little, I also was. I drew like a maniac, and I was always drawing like these cartoon characters. But was there anything that you particularly liked to gravitate
You
towards?
almost got to answer. And then you said cartoon characters, the Fundy comics. I always liked drawing those. I just thought those were fun. But I was obsessed with cars. I loved to draw cars.
Nice. That actually is a nice transition. There's some
Yes.
there's some impressive car paintings that we're going to be looking at here in a little bit. And wow. So, I guess it couldn't really hurt to kind of maybe go in that direction now if we want to, unless there's something that you wanted to tell us a little bit about the that formative stage as you moved from you were in Michigan and Ohio, right? So did
Mhm.
you moved when you moved to Florida? Is there anything about that period before we show off your cars that you'd like to maybe bring up that you think would be
Not really.
interesting?
Well, there was a period of a decade or so where I didn't paint at all. Just out of I went to school and then just didn't do much and worked in restaurants, bartending and things. And then I moved to Florida, and that's when I got back into art.
So what was it that made you get back into it?
Well, I was working at Fridays, and I just got tired of it. I mean, Fridays was a wonderful place to be. I was there for years, and this surely there's something else to do. And a girlfriend I had at the time was an interior designer, and they were doing that's when the model homes were starting to really pick up, and the housing boom was going on.
Yes.
Model homes that were going to do full finishes, or like kids' rooms with a theme, or sometimes in kitchens and stuff. So, and that went, and that was it took off.
That's awesome. So it just kind of became a like, hey, there's a need, fill a need kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And I found out I like painting big, just these massive houses and big walls. That served me well for many years.
Yeah. And then in Florida, it's kind of nice to be indoors doing the work, isn't it?
Oh, indeed, yes.
Yeah. That's one of the things I noticed about so I moved about 2 years ago. And the work that I was doing with drumming and stuff, and most of our work was in the summer, is it really does. It's to use a word brutal, right? It can be really intense.
It's nasty. I mean, you have to get everything done outside before 10 or before that, at the
Right.
crack of dawn.
Right. Yeah, it's something else. All right. Well, let's take a peek at some of these photos. So I'm going to do a screen share here. So if things get a little wonky for a moment, it should work itself out. Let me know though if we have any long-term issues, and we'll take a peek at some of these pictures. And I think we're going to start off by looking at your website.
That's an old website. It needs to be updated.
I find that I know exactly what you mean, but it's the nice thing about it is it wouldn't it doesn't there's nothing about it that screams that it's old, right? Um, Other than maybe you don't have his like current works up there or something like that. But so do me a favor, um, how do I pronounce that?
Trompe l'oeil. I found out if I use something in a foreign language, I can charge more.
That's right. Especially French.
Yes,
I just did a
and
neat
faux
interview in
finishes.
French. It's very
Yes,
cool. So yeah, so there's all kinds of things. So that's different. Like so the Trump Louis. Let's say it again.
Trump Louis,
Louis. I'm
and
going to say
almost like
Louis.
Louis,
Okay.
the man's name Louis, Trump Louis.
Okay. I'm going to just say Trump Louis then.
Yeah,
So that's different than a mural because that's actually more of a photorealistic picture, or
that's the idea. Like painting a flat wall with bricks to make it look like it's a brick wall, things like that.
okay. So as opposed to a faux finish. Uh,
Correct.
so 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 the brick wall is more of a faux finish. You're saying correct?
And that was sort of a trompe l'oeil. A faux
Oh,
finish is just smearing paint on the wall, kind of thing. And there are many types of faux finishes.
and that's like a marble. Like that might be an example
Yes,
of a yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
certainly. Yep, yep.
Okay, I got you. And then, okay, so I just, fascinated. We have the three different words here. I want to make sure that, we're covering that. And I don't like to assume that, everyone knows everything there is to know,
Oh,
right?
that's
Because,
true.
yeah. So let's take a peek at some of these. Now, in this lineup here of these 10 or 12 photos, let's start with this guy. And then if there's any that you're like in particular, like, dude, we got to talk about that one because that's
This was a
crazy.
very interesting piece with the horse here. That was, oh yeah, it is only one. That's one. There was 7 sections.
Wow.
This young girl was actually murdered. No, 70s, I think it was. No, the early 80s. Anyway, to make a long story short, that's a memorial for her.
Oh,
So, and she liked rainbows, she liked horses. So, the family wanted me to paint all the things that she really, really liked. And she was just nuts about the things at the time. Like the Grease movie just came out, and she liked to read. And she was a Girl Scout. She was, she liked the baseball, and that was her dog there down at the bottom. She liked animals. So that is at the Palm Harbor Middle School library.
oh, okay. I went to Palm Harbor Middle.
Oh, that's in the library now. I think that a
Oh,
couple years ago,
that's
or more like a
fantastic.
few years ago. Lisa Nelson, they have a 5K run every year now, and yeah, they said they didn't talk about it for a long time. And they just said, well, let's honor her life somehow or another. So that's what's going on there.
That's beautiful, and what a great memorial for her. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And so, what was the inspiration to have like the kind of the spectrum in the background, like the rainbow kind of
Well, she liked
backdrop there?
rainbows, and I wanted to do just something different. I said, let's just do rainbow color. And the wacky thing is, this is interesting. I won't spend too much time on it. We were born on the same. We both had the same birthday,
Oh,
7/7. And oh, actually, she was born on 7/7/70, 70 or something like that. She had more sevens than I did. But
mm,
anyway, the number 7 just kept on coming up when I was painting this mural. And there's 7 panels, and I didn't plan that. It was just the way it was. And it was 7. I put it in my studio, and I had to butt it against the one wall for some strange reason. I said, this isn't going to fit. And oh yeah, there is. There's 7 inches left. It was just wild. I mean, the whole time I was working, the number 7 came up.
that's
And I
cool.
guess when you're aware of some of that, then you kind of look for it or whatever. But it was just crazy.
It was popping out like
Yeah.
mad. That's I'm glad you shared that. That's fascinating. Wow.
Oh, the one thing, and I thought I was done. I thought, am I done here? I would hate to go over. Kind of messed up anyway.
Don't
So I
worry about
walked
it.
outside. I was going to walk downtown for lunch out of my studio, and I just took it, and I said, I'm just kind of worked up about it. I think I'm finished. So I just kind of closed my eyes for a second before I crossed the street, opened up my eye, and there was the cab, of course, with the number 7777. The cab company around here. They
Yep.
went in front of me. I said, that's it. It's done.
Thank you for the sign.
Yes.
And out. That's awesome. No, I just wanted to say one more time. I thought that was a really creative way to incorporate rainbows, to not have the rainbow at all, but
Right.
to have that backdrop. I mean, that's the kind of thinking, right? That artists do. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to close that hypothetically. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of go to the right, and we can feel free to pontificate as
Okay.
long or as short as you want. There's no worry for the time duration. The more the better, as far as I'm concerned. Unless
Okay.
you've got a hot date, maybe.
This one is in a bathroom, and it's funny because I do a mural sometimes. I just put my portfolio and people look at my portfolio. I want to do that, so I have painted this the old Florida look, with the lily pads and the palm trees and the woodsy things. I mean, many, many times. And it's common in bathrooms. So
And
it's
it's
pretty
beautiful
straightforward
too.
what that is.
Okay, cool. Let's see. There's my little. Oh, it's not giving me that thing. I guess if I click away from it, it will allow me to go. Okay, cool. All right. And is this an osprey
That
then?
is part of a mural. It's not quite finished yet. That is on Virginia Street Dermatology.
Okay.
So I once in a while take a picture before, during, and after, and this is during. So there's what is there on there? Oh, there's a superimposed orange crate label on there.
Okay.
She wanted to make it look like Honeymoon Island, and Honeymoon Island kind of looks like any other beach, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew that's what it was. So I did the orange crate label of Honeymoon Island. Too bad that's not finished on that one,
Okay.
but I'm glad you like it.
No, it's beautiful. And yeah, I mean, and then everyone can tell. I mean, obviously, this is very, very photorealistic work. I mean, that's what you're going for, right?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm a realism, like realism in my work and life, not so much.
yeah. I know exactly what that means. I mean, because yeah,
Okay, this
that's
is a client
crazy.
of mine. I did a lot of work for her, and she pushed perfume for a while, and
Okay.
she wanted to painting with all the perfume and stuff that she liked. That's a very, very feminine, very elegant. And I never painted a feather boa before, and that was interesting.
I can imagine.
But that was just an arrangement we set up and took a picture of it, and then I painted from that as a reference point.
So when you're doing something like this, like maybe something new, like a boa, right? Which even in like, you know, hair and all that stuff is some of the most challenging things, right, to create.
Oh yeah.
Um, did you practice that on a different canvas or a surface first and then transfer it here, or did you just play with it on this particular canvas until
I
you had it?
think that was many years ago. I think I probably just painted it directly on there.
Just went for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, work with acrylic, so if it's really at the beginning, I wipe it off really quick. But I probably put a bunch of thin brushed paint in my fist or whatever, just did them all at once and just, I don't know, smushed it around. I can't remember.
Right. Just whatever kind of you thought at the moment. So
Yeah.
are you working primarily in acrylic then, as opposed to oil?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I was trained in oil, and I mean, oils are pretty wonderful, and you can tell the difference, or at least I can. Many artists can. The oil will just a bit richer, but there's a trade-off with paint. With the acrylic, is a lot quicker,
Dries
and
quicker.
yeah, and it's okay. No, it's very. I like acrylic, but it's interesting the medium. People tell the difference. There is a difference, but yet, I like the result.
Right on. Yeah. And I think I was always thinking that the main difference between the two was, again, like, you know, acrylics dry very fast, oils can take days to dry.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're able to kind of blend and push things around in oils to a degree that you can't in acrylic. Is that right?
Right, you just have to paint over it.
Right. So you just kind of start over or kind of build
Mm-hmm.
on
Yeah.
top of it. So, and acrylics then are also going to be more suited for outdoor things as well. Is that right?
Oh yes.
Okay. So an oil painting would not be appropriate for an outdoor.
Well,
Could
it
it be?
would. I mean, it's just not. I mean, the oil. I mean, the latex water-based paints are just as good and durable as the oil. The alkyd oil paints are anymore.
Okay. Yeah, to me that kind of stuff is interesting too, like the nitty gritty stuff about it. I just recently actually had a part time job at Pino's Palette teaching people to paint, and that was all acrylics, and that was a lot of fun, you know, for a while it lasted. All
And
right.
also for outdoor paint, you have to have turpentine and solutions, to mix and blend and clean with. And it's just with acrylics is just water. It's just a lot easier, in
Right.
my opinion.
And it's probably less expensive in terms of the actual paint itself. Is that right?
I don't know. I haven't used oils in decades, so
Gotcha. Wow,
check
it's
that out.
amazing to think because I guess in my mind I always thought, you know, like, you know, well, fine art is always done in oils, right? And so that's just
Mhm.
a preconceived notion, and because obviously, you know, you have achieved some pretty awesome results, and I guess that maybe that's something that other people also kind of think too, right? Like they think that for some reason like oils are superior, but it's not necessarily true, is it?
Like I said, there was someone on Facebook, a talented artist in St. Pete, and has been sharing some of his paintings lately. And I was looking at them, and I thought, wow, I mean, the color, there is a difference. And it kind of got to thinking, well, maybe I'll play with that to see what happens. But I mean, I can't describe it. Do they just look just different, more have more depth or whatever? That's
Mm-hmm.
the word. We'll stick with that
Depth.
word. They
Okay.
depth.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, well, I find that fascinating. So this little this one here is some local fauna or flora. I'm sorry.
Yes, that was in some lady's bathroom, a huge bathroom, and it kind of looks like wall. Well, actually, that was inspired by the Beverly Hills Hotel wallpaper. It was the Beverly Hills Hotel in California, and they had this. I guess it's kind of famous wallpaper, but it's different shades of green. And she really liked it. And I said, well, I hate to copy, but I just say I was inspired by it and changed the colors that was more it matched her bedroom, her bathroom better.
Hmm. That's cool. So how many do you know? Have you have an idea roughly how many homes you've worked in over the last 30 years?
And I mean, hundreds, but I'm not sure if there are thousands or not. Because the mural business in the private homes has kind of slowed down. It was a trendy thing for a while, and someone said it wasn't. And then, tastes change.
Right.
But I do murals inside of homes every once in a while.
Yeah, and even some like maybe was it like a garage that you painted at some point not too long ago that made it look like it wasn't a garage at all, but it was like a portal to another world kind of thing. Am I
I've
just
done things,
imagining that?
something I can't think of what that would have been, but it sounds like something I have done.
Yeah,
I just can't think of a garage instance right at this point.
like a big garage door or something. So
Yeah.
this is a pretty popular painting, and so remind me though where this is, because I've seen it a million
Well,
times.
it's a very sad story here.
Ooh,
I
cue the
painted that.
violins.
Let's see, I turned 57. About 13 years ago. That's across the street from City Hall in Dunedin.
Okay.
And I was there for several years. And then the fellows who commissioned me to do that moved their business elsewhere, sold the business, and the new guy in town decided he wanted to put an addition onto the building. Well, they couldn't do it up front because there was the parking there. Couldn't do it on the back because there was an alley there, and the other side there was another building right next to it. So he had to put it on the empty lot that that faced this this mural. So that there's a brick wall in front of that now.
Mm.
It broke my heart because I'm very, very proud of my work. I think I was more proud of that than most anything because it was big. It was like 30 by 15 feet and a lot of personal things in there. I mean, many, many towns have this large letter postcard mural type thing.
Uh-huh.
We designed the one for Dunedin, and there's a lot of little Easter eggs in there. And it was just, I just had a lot of fun painting. Like people would walk by and, could talk to people while I was working, and it was really nice. But I will do that somewhere else in Dunedin. There's a couple of, big centers being opened, and so I'll paint it again.
Yeah, and they're actually I noticed. I mean, I was there in January. That they built many new apartments close to the water, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge mural now in downtown, a beautiful huge mural on the side of one of those, right?
What, something like this?
Well, it's a little different. Now that I'm trying to bring it up, I don't really remember it. I believe it's like blue, and I forget if it's like a face or something. But on one of the new apartments, I believe in downtown. Does that ring a
Oh,
bell?
yes, yes, yes. Of course, I can't think of the name of the place. It's on Douglas. Anyway, yes, some fellas from the big, sides of buildings. They came and painted that. And there's a couple of new murals in town.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I went to Dunedin High School and graduated in '92. And when I mentioned the sleepy town of Dunedin in our intro, it's not a sleepy town anymore, right? It's kind of like
No,
a
no,
kind
no.
of no, it's kind of hip hop and happening now.
Yeah.
But it definitely was. Um, it was in danger of becoming like dusty, that town, like a
Oh,
layer
yeah,
of dust.
that's why I bought a house here. The best thing I ever did was buy a house right before the boom started. I mean, it was the best thing I ever did.
Good. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now it's kind of like gangbusters. So, what are some of the Easter eggs in here, if you don't mind sharing? Like, maybe we just start. Like, what's going on in the D here? Which building is that?
The D that happens to be at Andrews Chapel, it's run by the History Museum, and that's near name of the park. Hammock Park. They have
Okay.
weddings there. It's no longer served as a church. They have weddings and other functions.
Oh, that's
And
the
the blue,
beautiful wood inside, isn't it?
yes, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yep, yep. And the U is they wanted to have the baseball. Now we have a new stadium, so maybe the new you're like, I paint the new stadium.
There you go.
And then the letter N is the Fenway, which is just recently reopened. And that's when it was all closed up. We wanted to bring attention to that. And of course, the oranges. And this is before I started painting the oranges.
Ah, a little foreshadowing.
Yes. And then the railroad, the railroad car at the box car at the museum. And I was the letter I said, well, we need to get bagpiper in there. So I was painting the bagpiper, and someone is walking by and said, well, that looks like you. And I said, no, it doesn't. Oh, I was sketching it. That's what it was. And a model of the picture that I had, he had a really strong jawline.
Uh,
But oh, well, that does kind of look like me, And so I painted myself with my dog at the time, my Springer Spaniel Trip, at my feet. And that's the first self-portrait I've ever done.
I love that. That's so cool.
And then that's a nature center at Honeymoon Island at the letter N.
Oh, yep. Yep, it is. Absolutely.
And the dock downstairs, the walkway there, they have the little signs, telling you what to do or what not to do. Well, I had a couple of them, and I said one was the start date and one was the date that I finished it. So I thought I would always know when I started and finished it, but now that it's painted over, I don't remember the exact dates that I started and finished it. A lot of good that day.
I love that idea of like kind of hiding little Easter eggs in your artwork.
Yeah.
I made a portrait for a friend, and it was of his father, and in it I kind of hid these little messages like love and different things like that in there. And if you look, you see them, but if you don't look, you might not notice them. And that's one of the things that's kind of neat about creating a piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Oh, and I forgot at the end of the dock on the right side, my ex-wife, I have a picture of her. Well, we were married at the time, but she's a photographer. So I have her kneeling, taking a picture, and our other dog next to her.
that's
So that
awesome.
was kind of sweet.
Yeah, that is sweet. Well, I hope she appreciated it for what it's
Oh, she
worth.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I would hope so. So looking at the water, is that something that you're like totally used to doing and making look so like realistic? Is that like one of the harder things?
It's painting water is just weird. It just somehow it happens for me. I don't know how. Like, I don't know if I can do this. So I just start painting and just kind of smush and paint around and just hope it turns out okay. It just looking for the darks and the shadows and just like dissecting it. Like, okay, this is a dark spot, but it filters out, it fades, and that's yeah. And I always usually work light to dark. But in the case like this, it's just the main color blue, and then the dark, gradually getting lighter on top of that.
So just another question about it. Did you have a photograph of water that you were working from, or is this like just out of your
I
brain?
had a picture of that whole thing that someone took what was his name? Bill somebody. It'll come to me. But this is a picture that I found of that area. So that was pretty easy, pretty straightforward.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I recently drew a picture of a friend, and it was kind of like almost a personal challenge. Like, well, you haven't drawn something realistic in a while. Let's see how you do. And and I surprised myself, and it was nice to have that photograph. And I think that there's a lot of artists out there. I'm thinking of my daughter in particular, who used to think before she started going to art school that oh, if you look at a photo, my goodness, you're cheating, right? You should be able
I
to
hate that. I mean, I hear it a lot, but it's no. You need a reference picture. I mean, how are you supposed to get it realistic without a point of reference?
right.
I mean, it's wonderful to paint out of your head, but if you want to get the detail, you need something to look at.
That's right. I
Your
agree.
memory just only works so well.
And that's what artists, I mean, all kinds of mediums do, right? We use things like photographs, or we take a song that we like and we tweak it or whatever. I mean, that is the process, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You
So
need a
not,
model.
and there's nothing exactly right. That's why people are models, for people to draw
Yes.
pictures of them. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
because hello, yeah. So if you're an artist out there and you're stuck in that mindset, please unstick yourself. All right. Only you can prevent forest fires. All right, let's take a look at this here. And that is like a photograph. My
That
goodness.
is a painting I did, and the paint it's a small painting, maybe 8 by 10.
Hmm.
Usually I work in big, but I did that as a donation to the Dunedin Fine Arts Center, the garden party. They're money makers and money maker in the summertime.
Hmm.
Well, it's in the spring. Anyhow, a little donation I gave.
The Dunedin Fine Arts Center. So you have a pretty good relationship with those folks over there?
I do. I was even taking classes for a while because you never stop learning.
I saw that you had that somewhere. Maybe it was in something I read about you somewhere, that you kept taking classes, and I love that idea. I haven't followed through with it for myself. I kind of want to. So, what in one of the last classes as you were taking them and stuff, what was something that you felt you got out of it that maybe surprised you or benefited
Oh,
from?
that's an interesting question. It just gave me. I hadn't done anything on. The main reason I did this class is because I wanted to paint on canvas because I hadn't painted on canvas in a long time.
Right,
So
you've
it
been
just
painting
forced me to
walls
do
and stuff.
canvas paintings. And I was Melissa Miller niece was the instructor, and she's a realist and color. She taught me a lot about color.
That's awesome.
Little trick, like I said, you never stop learning. You just don't know it all.
That's it. And there's no way to know it all. And there's so many, yeah, anything at any time could suddenly open up a whole new idea for you or a concept. Um, yeah, so just being aware, and I love that idea though of continuing the education and just making that a part of your whole art journey, right?
I mean, it's been a long time since I've done that. It's and reminded me it's time to take another class.
Right on. Do you teach ever?
I have a couple of times, but I don't like it. I just
I don't
figure it
know.
out for yourself, Aaron. I
Yeah, punk. Yeah, I myself too. I went through a big phase of teaching, and now I'm not, and I kind of also agree with you. I kind of feel like okay, maybe that part's done for me. We'll see. Always open to it. So here we have some of the fauna is the right word now. We have the sea turtles, and those are
This
beautiful.
was one of 4 paintings that I did. I believe they were big. This is when I had this studio, Sterling Art Studio above Rosie's downtown. Anyway, it was a huge
Yes.
studio, but it was real dark. And I did 4 of these paintings, and they were Joe Kokalakis had commissioned them for me, and he donated them to the East Countryside Hospital, children's rooms there, and that's where they are. And it was wild when I painted. Like I said, my studio was very dark, and I painted all these bright, underwater scenes, and it looked like an aquarium when you walked in. Like big aquariums you walk in, it's like it real hush, and it's dark until you can see the green and things of the water. But I did 4 of them. One was turtles and manatees, a mixture, and the other one escapes me right now. It may come to me. Something that lives underwater.
Great white shark. No.
And they weren't sharks. Um, 10 minutes later, I'll blurt it out. But there were 4 underwater scenes.
It's cool that they ended up in the hospital because art is something that really does bring, a sense of peace and calm to people, and I dare say even more so than like a photograph when it's done right. And obviously you're achieving realism here, and yet the fact that it's painted and not a photograph, uh, there's something energetic about that I think people when they're actually, let's say they're sitting in a hospital bed for several hours, right, and just kind of staring at the walls,
Mm.
going, "What am I going to do with myself?" And they can get lost. You can get lost in a photograph, but in a painting, once you notice it's a painting, and then you're like, "Oh, I can see like those brush strokes if I really stare at it," and then you kind of go on this little journey. And I think it's really cool that they that they have things like that in those rooms. Um, and yeah, that just makes the experience, that much more bearable for people.
Yeah.